She parked her car and then walked to an elevator in this garage when a man came up with a knife and robbed her. Employees tell me the carjacking all started in this drive-thru. Actually got a copy of the police report here, and although Mathis's alcohol content was under the legal limit, he told officers he also took a sleeping aid. Yeah, Dave, a very scary night for people living in that area. Well, Indigo leaders say signs like this have gone up to let people know that the project will be starting. It sure is, and they're very happy that police were able to make an arrest, but they're still in shock because they tell me this type of crime just doesn't happen in their area. Riding his bike on this sidewalk when a car jumped the curb, hit this guardrail. Well, we won't know for sure until the official student count is done in September. Yeah, well, for the past couple of hours, officers, city employees, and community members have been stopping by the police department here to pay their respects. You can see a memorial has been set up. That is Lieutenant Allen's car. Right, well, fans are obviously very disappointed by this news, but some of them say they weren't that surprised by it. Yeah, Phil, it does. In 2016, the city saw 149 homicides. We've reached that number this year, just 6 days into December.
I done cried so much, man.
It's a scene that's played out over.
They could take their war somewhere else.
How dare you? And over. How dare you not respect his family? Again, the flashing lights, the crime scene tape, a loved one gone. Families all across the city impacted by what one mom calls senseless homicides.
Dejan was an awesome son, friend, family guy.
Krista Frazier smiles when she talks about her son, a football star at Warren Central who had dreams of playing in the NFL. But those dreams were cut short back in May.
Yeah, I got a phone call at work that Dejan and his friends had been shot. And I didn't know what to think. That was like the worst phone call I've ever got in my life.
He's just one of 149 people who lost their life to violence this year.
It's very hard because every time this happens, I go back to May the 5th when I got my phone call. And so I just think about that parent, that mother, that family that has to live the nightmare that I'm living.
Throughout the year, we've seen calls for peace on the streets and marches to end the violence, but so far, it hasn't been enough.
You just worry about the next day, the next child, the next mother, the next father, the next family. What's going to happen next? This is the worst thing anybody could have to go through.
Coming up tonight at 11, you'll hear from one community leader and what he thinks needs to be done to decrease violence in Indianapolis. Megan Sanctorum, 24-Hour News 8.
All right,
The posts pop up when you do a simple search and others are disguised with code words. Either way, this is a trend local recovery groups are watching closely. After logging on to social media, it doesn't take long to find posts like this.
Frustrating. Very, very frustrating.
Pills and other drugs for sale.
It's hard enough to get it out of our neighborhoods, let alone being in every single household at a click of a button.
It's just one more avenue people like Kenny McRee say they'll be watching.
The pills are the pathway.
McRee runs an organization called Ravenswood Hope. The group helps connect those battling addiction and their families with the resources they need to get clean. So far, he says he hasn't heard of postings like this being used in Indianapolis, but that's not to say it won't start.
I'm sure it's on its way.
He says sometimes the postings can be tougher to track.
They'll disguise meeting places, they'll disguise the words, they'll disguise things to get past the law enforcement.
This is something that hits close to home for McRee. His daughter overcame a heroin addiction and has been clean for more than a year. The addiction started after she was prescribed pain pills for an injury, and he says knowing those types of pills could be readily available online is something every parent needs to watch out for.
They should, in general, be worried about social media and be proactive in monitoring and overseeing what their kids are looking at.
We also reached out to IMPD to see if this was something that they are seeing here in Indianapolis. They say at this point it hasn't been a major problem. In the newsroom, Megan Sanctorum, 24-Hour News 8. This negotiation team was able to work with that man and convince him to not only release his girlfriend unharmed, but to surrender peacefully as well. It was exactly the outcome these officers train, prepare, and hope for. 44-year-old Tracy Lloyd sits outside in handcuffs, uninjured and without injuring his girlfriend or any officers. It's all thanks to teamwork from IMPD.
Yesterday, as a team, we helped save 2 people's lives, and that's an awesome feeling.
But getting to that point wasn't easy or quick. IMPD's negotiation team worked to communicate with Lloyd for more than 3 hours. The conversations often getting tense. Do you ever get nervous?
Absolutely. I think that's part of it, but you really rely on your team to kind of keep you level.
Unlike most people see on TV, the negotiations is a team effort.
For this incident, all 7 team members were called out, each working a very specific role.
You know, there's someone gathering intel, maybe there's mental health issues in the past, or there's weapons training or something that we may need to know information about. You have someone that's actually speaking with the person or trying to speak with them.
Each negotiator trained for each role. Negotiators go through a rigorous application process, and only a few who apply are selected. Once on the team, they have to be ready to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We have to be ready to leave family events, dinners, anything like that, to go out to assist someone.
It's a big sacrifice, but it's one these officers say they're willing to make, especially when they have outcomes like this.
The biggest part is the satisfaction that you get when the incident is over, knowing that you have saved somebody's life. That makes it worth everything that you've done.
Then everyone just goes back home to their families, and you hug your loved ones. That's really what it's about.
Now, as we mentioned, that suspect surrendered peacefully and was taken to jail. He is facing several preliminary charges, including confinement and pointing a firearm. Reporting live downtown, Megan Sanctorum, 24 Hour News 8.